In 1531, Mexico lay broken under the iron weight of Spanish rule. 10 years had passed since Hernan Cortez toppled the Aztec Empire, leaving its temples in rubble and its gods silenced. The great codexes, woven with centuries of wisdom, had been fed to Spanish fires, deemed devilry by zealous missionaries. On Tepeyac Hill, where frost crusted the earth in the pre-dawn chill of December 9th, Juan Diego Cuauhtlatzin walked alone, his bare feet stinging against the frozen ground. His tilma, a coarse cloak of maguey cactus fiber, clung to his shoulders, its worn threads heavier than they should be, as if carrying the weight of a world that no longer existed. At 57, Juan Diego, a Chichimeca Indian baptized into the Conqueror's faith, bore the scars of two worlds. His Christian name sat awkwardly beside Cuauhtlatzin, meaning the eagle that speaks, a Nahuatl title that whispered of a time when his people answered only to the seasons and the gods who spoke through wind and rain. The Spanish called him Indio, a word that flattened his heritage into a single dismissive syllable. Each morning he rose from his adobe hut in Talpitlac, wrapped his tilma against the mountain cold, and walked to Tlatelolco for Mass, a ritual demanded by priests who saw his old ways as sin. Tepeyac Hill, once a sacred shrine to Tonantzin, the Aztec mother goddess, stood desolate now, its altars smashed by Spanish hands. But as Juan Diego climbed its slopes, a faint warmth stirred in his chest, as if the earth remembered its holiness. The Spanish had planted crosses where Aztec altars once blazed, but they could not erase the memory of the divine etched into the stones. His tilma caught on his calloused hands, its weight a quiet mystery he could not yet name. Then it came, a sound like no other. Not the harsh toll of church bells or the Latin chants of Tlatelolco, but a melody rising from the earth, sweet as bird song, yet vast as the sky. A golden light pierced the mist, not dawn, but something alive, pulsing with unearthly warmth. Juan Diego froze, his breath catching in the cold air. His fingers tightened on the tilma, its fibers heavy as if woven with unseen purpose. The light wasn't just light, it was her. At the summit stood a woman, radiant, her bronze skin mirroring his own, her dark hair draped beneath a mantle shimmering with stars that pulsed like living fire. Her dress glowed the color of dawn, rose and gold, and a faint swell beneath her sash spoke of life within her. Her eyes held the love of every mother who had mourned a conquered child, the compassion of Tonantzin herself, yet something more, a divine presence that transcended both earth and sky. She spoke in perfect Nahuatl, her voice a song that bypassed his ears and sank into his heart. "Juanito, my beloved son," she said, the diminutive softening his 57 years into the vulnerability of a cherished child. "Where are you going?" His knees buckled, his rough hands clutching the tilma. "My lady," he stammered, with doubt. "To Tlatelolco for the mass the priests demand." Her smile was a sunrise after endless winter, warming the frost-covered hill. "Know, my son, that I am the ever-virgin Holy Mary, Mother of the true God who gives life to all. I wish a temple built here on Tepeyac Hill, where I will show my love, my compassion, my protection to all who suffer in this land. Juan Diego's heart raced. The Spanish priests taught that God spoke through gilded crosses and Latin prayers, not to an Indian on a hill sacred to his people's gods. Yet here she stood, her starry mantle a map of the heavens his ancestors knew, her pregnant form echoing Tonantzin nurturing embrace. "My lady," he protested, his voice cracking with doubt, "I'm no one, a poor man, a nobody. The Spanish bishops won't hear an Indian's words. They'll call me mad." She stepped closer, her warm hand brushing his weathered cheek, carrying the scent of roses and copal incense, the air of sacred mountains. "It is you I have chosen, Juanito." Her ease held his with unyielding certainty. "The sign they demand will bloom where none should grow." Her words struck like stones in still water, rippling through his fear. A temple on Tepeyac Hill, where his people had prayed for centuries, now claimed by Spanish boots. The impossibility of it pressed against his chest, yet her promise of a sign, of blooms in barren places, stirred a flicker of hope. "I will go," he said, his voice steady despite the storm within. "I will do as you ask, my lady." She nodded, regal yet tender, her starry mantle shimmering against the gray dawn. Then she faded into the light, leaving only the echo of celestial music and a fragrance of roses that lingered in the cold air. The hill fell silent, the frost glittering under the rising sun. But Juan Diego's world had shifted. His bare feet turned from the path to Tlatelolco, carrying him toward the Episcopal Palace in Mexico City, where Bishop John de Zumarraga held court over the spiritual fate of New Spain. The palace rose like a fortress of Spanish power, its stone walls and narrow windows dwarfing the dusty streets below. Spanish guards flanked the gate, their armor glinting in the morning sun, their eyes raking over Juan Diego's Tilma with bored contempt. His maguey cloak marked him as an Indio, invisible to the conqueror's world. "I must see His Excellency the Bishop," he said in halting Spanish, the words clumsy after the nahuatl that still sang in his ears. The guard smirked, exchanging glances. "The bishop sees petitioners on Thursdays," one said, his tone sharp as a blade, "and only those with proper business." "It's urgent," Juan Diego pressed, his hands trembling but his voice firm. "I carry a message from the Holy Virgin herself." The guard raised an eyebrow, his smirk fading slightly, and gestured to a side entrance. "Wait in the courtyard. If His Excellency has time, he'll see you." The courtyard was a clash of worlds, Spanish roses struggling in Mexican soil, geometric stone paths cutting through earth once trodden by pilgrims to Tonantzin. Juan Diego stood alone, his tilma stark against the polished stone, its weight a quiet reminder of the hilltop promise. How could he explain the impossible? A woman of his people, radiant as the sun, asking for a temple on land the Spanish claimed. His fingers traced the tilma's coarse fibers, heavier than ever, as if they knew what was to come. Bishop Juan de Zumarraga appeared at last, his white Franciscan robes crisp as fresh snow, his pale blue eyes sharp with the certainty of Spanish nobility. educated at Alcala, appointed by the crown to bring Christian order to a heathen land, he carried the weight of an empire's mission. "I'm told you wished to see me," he said, his voice formal, his gaze assessing Juan Diego like a scholar weighing a dubious claim. Juan Diego knelt, not from fear but from reverence for the God whose mother had chosen him. "Your Excellency," he began, his Spanish careful but clear, "I bring a message from the Holy Virgin Mary. She appeared on Tepeyac Hill, radiant, speaking my language. She asks for a temple there to offer her love and protection to all who suffer." Zumarraga's face remained still, but a flicker of alertness crossed his eyes. He'd heard such claims before, fervent Indians, eager converts, or cunning frauds. "Visions are common among your people, are they not?" he said, his tone polite but edged with skepticism, as if testing the waters of a shallow stream. "Tell me more of this apparition." Juan Diego recounted the encounter, the music rising from the earth, the light outshining the dawn, the woman's starry mantle and Nahuatl words. He spoke of her promise, her request, her choice of a simple man to bridge two worlds. The bishop listened, his fingers steepled, his cathedral's gold vestments a stark contrast to Juan Diego's rough maguey cloak. The courtyard grew silent, the Spanish roses wilting under the weight of his doubt. "A temple on Tepeyac Hill," Zumarraga said at last, his voice measured, his eyes narrow and slightly. "A bold claim, and one that demands more than an Indian's word. Return to your village, Juan Diego. If this vision is true, perhaps the Virgin will provide a sign, something extraordinary to prove her will." The dismissal cut deep, though cloaked in courtesy. Juan Diego's heart sunk, his faith trembling against the reality of Spanish power. He rose, his tilma brushing the stone path, its mysterious weight grounding him. He bowed and left the palace, the guard's smirks trailing him like shadows. The bishop's words echoed, a sign, something extraordinary. The Virgin's promise, blooms where none should grow, flickered in his mind, a spark against the gathering storm of doubt. The sun climbed higher, burning away the mist as Juan Diego retraced his steps toward Tolpetlac. The path to Tlatelolco, to the mass he had forsaken, no longer called him. His simple life had shattered on that hilltop, his heart now bound to a mission that could heal a broken land, or mark him as a fool. The sun hung low over the Valley of Mexico, casting long shadows across the frost-dusted path to Tepeyac Hill. Juan Diego Cuauhtémoc walked with purpose, his bare feet numb against the cold earth, his tilma heavier than ever, its coarse maguey fibers seeming to hum with the Virgin's promise. Bishop Zumarraga's dismissal from yesterday stung, his polite words, his skeptical eyes, his demand for a sign that felt as unreachable as the stars on her mantle. Yet her Nahuatl voice echoed in his heart. "It is you I have chosen, Juanito." On this morning, December 10th, 1531, he returned to the hill, driven by faith flickering between doubt and resolve, his steps a quiet prayer on sacred ground. Tepeyac rose before him, its barren slopes a silent witness to the gods his people once honored. The Spanish had torn down Tonantzin shrine, leaving only rocks and sparse grass. Yet the earth still felt alive, its stones whispering of prayers offered under open skies. Juan Diego's breath clouded in the pre-dawn chill, his calloused hands clutching the tilma as he climbed. He was no one, a poor Indio, a man of adobe huts and maguey cloaks, dismissed by the powerful. Yet the Virgin had called him her son, chosen him to bridge a chasm wider than the ocean that brought the Spanish to this land. The tilma dragged at his shoulders, its fibers heavy with a purpose he feared he could not fulfill. At the summit, the air shimmered, and a celestial melody rose, softer now, but no less alive, like bird song woven with the wind's sacred hum. A golden light pierced the mist, not dawn, but something eternal, pulsing with unearthly warmth. There she stood, radiant, her bronze skin glowing like his own, her starry mantle pulsing with points of light that mapped the heavens his ancestors knew. Her eyes held boundless love, but today they carried a maternal understanding, as if she saw the storm of doubt raging in his chest. "Juanito, my beloved son," she said, her Nahuatl voice warm as a hearth fire, "why do you hesitate?" Juan Diego fell to his knees, his tilma brushing the frost-covered ground. "My lady," he said, his voice trembling, "I went to Bishop Zumariga as you asked. I told him of your request for a temple here, of your radiance on this hill. But he did not believe me. He called my words a vision common among my people, asked for a sign, something extraordinary. I am only a poor man. How can I make him see what I have seen in you?" Her smile softened, like dawn easing into day, her rose-scented presence calming his fear. "Do not be troubled, my son," she said, stepping closer, her dress glowing with the hues of sunrise. "My words are true, and my will shall be done. Go again to the bishop. Tell him I, the mother of the true God, ask for a temple here, where I will hear the cries of all who suffer, where I will be a mother to the broken." Juan Diego's heart lifted, though doubt clung like frost to the edges of his faith. "My lady," he pressed, his voice low, "he is a man of books and power, surrounded by Spanish advisers who mock my kind. What if he dismisses me again? What if he sees only an Indio's tale, not your sacred truth?" Her reached out, her warm fingers brushing his weathered cheek, the scent of copal incense mingling with roses, the air of sacred mountains. "You are my messenger, Juanito," she said, her eyes holding his with unyielding certainty. "Speak my words with the courage of your ancestors, who trusted the earth's promises. The sign will bloom when it is needed." Her words were a spark in the cold, rekindling his resolve. The tilma felt heavier, as if her touch had woven something unseen into its fibers. He nodded, his bare feet steady on the sacred earth. "I will go again, my lady," he said, his voice stronger now, "and I will speak as you command." She faded into the light, her starry mantle blending with the dawn, leaving only the echo of her music and the fragrance of roses. Juan Diego descended the hill, his tilma dragging with purpose, his steps carrying him back to the Episcopal Palace in Mexico City. The city stirred around him, its stone walls and Spanish crosses a stark reminder of the world he dared to challenge. The sky darkened with gathering clouds, mirroring the weight of his mission. He was no scholar, no noble, yet he carried a truth that could mend a broken land or mark him as a fool. At the palace, the guards recognized him, their smirk sharper now, as if his return were a jest grown tiresome. Back again, Indio, one said, his armor glistened coldly in the shadowed courtyard. Bishop Zumariga has better things to do than hear your tales. I carry the Virgin's message, Juan Diego replied, his Spanish halting but firm, his hand steady on the tilma's coarse edges. It cannot wait. The guard snorted, but led him to the courtyard, where Spanish roses wilted in the Mexican chill, their petals a faint echo of the fragrance on the hill. A small crowd had gathered, clerks in black robes, a noble in velvet, servants whisperin' behind calloused hands. Juan Diego stood alone, the tilma's weight a quiet anchor, its fibers hummin' with a mystery he could not name. His heart raced, rehearsin' her words, wrestlin' with the gulf between his adobe world and the palace's stone grandeur. Bishop Juan Zumariga appeared, his Franciscan robes crisp as fresh snow, his pale blue eyes sharp with impatience. Flanked by two advisers, their velvet cloaks and stern faces a wall of Spanish authority, he regarded Juan Diego with the scrutiny of a judge. "You return so soon," he said, his voice formal, but edged with irritation. "What more do you bring, Juan Diego?" Before Juan Diego could speak, an adviser interrupted, his voice drippin' with disdain. "Your Excellency, this Indio's tales waste your time. Visions are common among his kind, superstitions, nothing more." Juan Diego's chest tightened, but he held his ground, the tilma's weight heavy against his shoulders. "His lady's truth needs no in-Spain approval," he said, his Spanish clear despite the tremor in his hands. "The Holy Virgin Mary appeared on Tepeyac Hill, radiant, speaking my language. She asks for a temple there, to offer her love and protection to all who suffer." The second adviser scoffed, his eyes narrowing. "An Indio claiming divine messages? We need proof, not stories." The crowd murmured, their whispers a tide of doubt washing over him. Zumariga raised a hand, silencing them, his gaze fixed on Juan Diego. "You speak boldly for a man of your station," he said, his tone probing, like a scholar testing a dubious text. "But the Church requires evidence, not fervor. If this virgin is true, she must provide a sign, something undeniable, something that speaks to reason as well as faith." The words landed like a blow, though cloaked in European courtesy. Juan Diego's heart sunk, his faith straining against the weight of Spanish certainty. "Your Excellency," he said, his voice low but steady, "I am only her messenger. She promised a sign, and I trust her word." Zumariga leaned forward, his fingers steepled, his eyes searching for deceit. "Then bring this sign, Juan Diego," he said, his voice firm. "Without it, your words are but stories, and I cannot act on stories alone." The advisers nodded, their faces a mirror of the bishop's doubt. Juan Diego rose, the tilma's weight pressing harder, its fibers seeming to pulse with her promise. He bowed and left the courtyard, the clerk's murmurs and the noble stare trailing him like thorns. The palace's stone walls loomed behind him, a fortress of power that felt as distant as the heavens. His faith flickered, tested by the bishop's dismissal, by the vast gulf between his world and theirs. Yet her words, her promise of a sign, burned in his chest, a spark against the cold. As he walked towards Tolpetlock, the sky darkened further, heavy with storm clouds that mirrored his doubt. He paused by a dry stream bed, the Tilma dragging at his shoulders, its weight a reminder of her trust. He sank to his knees, his hands tracing the coarse fibers, and whispered a prayer to the Virgin. "My lady, you chose me, but I am weak. My people trusted the earth's promises, as you said. Help me trust yours." The wind carried no answer, but the tilma felt heavier, as if her presence lingered in its threads. At his adobe hut in Tolpetlock, Juan Diego found his uncle, Juan Bernardino, lying on a straw mat, his face flushed with fever, his breathing shallow. The old man, 68 and frail, clutched his nephew's hand, his voice a whisper. "Nephew," he said, "I fear my time is near. Find a priest in Tlatelolco to hear my confession. Let me prepare my soul." Juan Diego's heart twisted, torn between the Virgin's mission and his sacred duty to family. In his people's ways, caring for elders was a bond as deep as the earth itself, a trust unbroken even by conquest. "I will go, uncle," he said, his voice thick with anguish. "At dawn I will bring a priest." Juan Bernardino's eyes softened, his grip tightening. "You carry a heavy burden, Juan Diego," he said. "Our elders' care is our honor, but I see your heart is called elsewhere. Trust the path you walk, nephew, even if it leads through storms." The words pierced him, echoing the Virgin's charge. That night sleep eluded him. The tilma lay folded beside his mat, its weight a silent reminder of her promise. He thought of her radiant face, her naquatl words, her choice of a poor man to face an empire's doubt. But with his uncle dying, the mission felt impossible. How could he carry divine words when earthly duties called? His faith wavered, a candle flickering in a storm. Before dawn on December 11th, Juan Diego rose, his tilma wrapped tightly against the cold. He chose a different path to Tlatelolco, skirting Tepeyac Hill to avoid the Virgin's gaze. His bare feet moved quickly, crunching frost, driven by urgency, his heart heavy with guilt. He was abandoning her mission, choosing family over heaven's call. The sky hung heavy, gray with unspent rain, mirroring the storm within him. But as he rounded a bend, the air shimmered, and the celestial music returned, soft as a mother's lullaby, cutting through the frost. A golden light broke the mist, and there she stood, her starry mantle glowing, her bronze skin radiant, her eyes filled with boundless understanding. "Juanito," she said, her voice gentle but firm, "where are you going, my son?" He fell to his knees, tears stinging his eyes, the tilma's weight grounding him. "My lady, forgive me," he said, his voice breaking. "My uncle Juan Bernardino is dying, burning with fever. I must find a priest to save his soul. I cannot carry your message now." Her smile was a balm, her presence a warmth that defied the winter air. "Do not fear, Juanito," she said.
stepping closer, her rose-scented hand resting on his shoulder. "Your uncle is healed. Even now my love restores him. But you must trust me. Go to the hill's summit tomorrow and gather what you find there. It will be the sign the bishop seeks." Juan Diego's tears fell, his heart torn between relief and awe. "You have healed him?" he whispered, his voice trembling with hope, his hands clutching the tilma's heavy folds. "Yes, my son," she said, her eyes holding his with infinite compassion. "And through you I will show my love to all who suffer. Trust in me." He nodded, his faith reignited. The tilma's weight went a promise rather than a burden. She faded into the light, her starry mantle blending with the dawn, leaving the scent of roses and the echo of her music. Juan Diego rose, his bare feet steady on the frost-covered path, his heart filled with a certainty he had not known before. His uncle was healed. The sign was coming. He would return to Tepeyac at dawn, ready to carry whatever heaven placed in his hands. The sky lightened as he turned back towards Tolpetloc, the frost melting under the rising sun, the clouds parting to reveal a sliver of blue. The tilma hung heavy. The dawn of December 12th, 1531, broke cold and gray over Tepeyac Hill, its frost-covered slopes glinting like a promise held in silence. Juan Diego Cuautla stood at its base, his bare feet numb against the frozen earth, his tilma wrapped tightly against the winter air. The Virgin's words from yesterday burned in his heart. "Go to the hill summit tomorrow and gather what you find there. It will be the sign the bishop seeks." Last night he had found his uncle Juan Bernardino restored, his fever gone, his eyes bright with a peace that spoke of her touch. Now Juan Diego climbed, his tilma heavier than ever, its coarse maguey fibers humming with a purpose he could not yet name. The sky hung heavy, its clouds a veil over the sacred hill, mirroring the doubt that lingered in his chest. Tepeyac was barren, its rocks and sparse grass dusted with frost, a stark contrast to the warmth he had felt in her presence. The Spanish had stripped away Tonantzin shrine, leaving only the bones of a sacred place. But the earth pulsed with holiness, its stones whispering of prayers answered across centuries. Juan Diego's breath clouded in the chill, his calloused hands trembling as he reached the summit. He trusted her promise of a sign that would bloom where none should grow. Yet the winter desert stretched before him, offering nothing but frost and silence. How could anything flourish here where only memory grew? Then it came, a fragrance that stopped him cold. Roses, rich and sweet, impossible in the high desert's chill. He turned, and there they were, blooming in profusion across the frost-covered ground, their petals vivid red and white, glowing against the gray dawn like stars fallen to earth. Castilian roses, Bishop Zumarraga's native flowers, foreign to this land, defying season and soil. Juan Diego's heart leapt, his knees buckling as he sank to the earth, tears stinging his eyes. The Virgin's words echoed, "The sign will bloom where none should grow." He reached out, his weathered hands trembling, as he gathered the blooms, their petals soft and warm against his calloused fingers, their fragrance filling the air like a prayer answered before it was spoken. Each flower was a miracle, a promise kept in this barren place. He filled his tilma, its fibers straining under the weight, heavier now with heaven's gift.
As he turned to descend, the air shimmered, and she appeared, radiant, her bronze skin mirroring the conquered people, her starry mantle pulsing with points of light that mapped the heavens. Her eyes held boundless love, now tinged with a quiet triumph, her pregnant form echoing Tonanzin's nurturing embrace. "She and Tito, my beloved son," she said, her Nahuatl voice a melody that warmed the frost. "You have done well." She stepped forward, her rose-scented hands rearranging the flowers in his tilma with the care of a mother dressing her child. Her touch blessed the coarse cactus fiber, her fingers weaving a mystery he could not yet see. "Take these to Bishop Zumarraga," she said, her eyes meeting his with unyielding certainty. "This is the sign he seeks. Through you, my love will shine for all who suffer." Juan Diego nodded, his heart full, his doubt washed away by the fragrance of impossible blooms. "I will go, my lady," he said, his voice steady with a certainty born of miracles. She smiled, a sunrise over the mountains, then faded into the light, leaving only the echo of celestial music and the weight of roses in his tilma. The frost glittered under the rising sun, the clouds parting to reveal a sliver of blue, as if the heavens themselves awaited the moment to come. The path to Mexico City stretched before him, the city awakening under a sky now clearing to gold. The episcopal palace loomed as he approached, its stone walls a fortress of Spanish power, its narrow windows glaring down at the dusty streets. The guards at the gate recognized him, their smirks fading at the bulge in his tilma, the faint scent of roses trailing him. "Back again, Indio?" one said, his tone softened by curiosity. "What's in that cloak?" "A sign for Bishop Zumarraga," Juan Diego replied, his Spanish clear, his hands protecting his precious cargo. "He must see it now." The guard hesitated, then led him to the courtyard, where Spanish roses struggled in the cold, their petals a pale shadow of the blooms he carried. A crowd had gathered, Spanish nobles in velvet cloaks, clergy in starched robes, indigenous servants whispering behind calloused hands. Their eyes followed him, a mix of scorn and intrigue, as he stood alone, his tilma a stark contrast to the palace's grandeur. His heart raced, the virgin's promise aflame in his chest, the tilma's weight grounding him against their stares. Bishop Zumarraga appeared, his Franciscan robes crisp as fresh snow, his pale blue eyes sharp with a mix of caution and expectation. Flanked by his advisers, their faces stern, he regarded Juan Diego with the weight of a man who had dismissed too many claims. "You return again," he said, his voice formal but tinged with curiosity. "What do you bring this time, Juan Diego?" "Another Indian tale, no doubt," a noble in the crowd muttered, his words drawing a ripple of agreement from the clergy. Juan Diego's hands tightened on the tilma, its fibers heavy with her promise. He stepped forward, his bare feet steady on the polished stone. "Your Excellency," he said, his voice cleared despite the tremor in his hands, "I have brought the sign you requested." He lifted the tilma's edges, his fingers careful, and let the roses cascade to the floor. They fell in profusion of red and white, their fragrance filling the air, their beauty stunning the crowd to silence. Gasps rose from the nobles, the clergy's murmur stilled, the servants' eyes widening as the impossible blooms piled at Bishop Zumarraga's feet. A woman in the crowd whispered, "Roses in winter?" A priest crossed himself, his voice trembling. A miracle! But the greater miracle followed. As the roses fell, the Tilma unfolded, and there she was, an image not painted, not drawn, but alive on the coarse cactus fiber. The Virgin radiant, her bronze skin mirroring the conquered people, her starry mantle shimmering with the heavens, her eyes filled with love and sorrow. The crowd froze, the advisor's skepticism shattered, the servants fallen to their knees. Bishop Zumarraga's eyes widened, his face paling as he sank to his knees, his hands trembling as he reached toward the image. "It is her," he whispered, his voice breaking, "the Mother of God." The courtyard erupted in murmurs, Spanish nobles bowing beside indigenous servants, their hierarchies dissolved by an image that honored the conquered, yet spoke to all. A noble's voice cracked, "She is one of them, yet ours." An indigenous servant wept, whispering in the huddle, "She is our mother." Juan Diego stood silent, his tilma now a window between earth and heaven, its weight gone, as if the miracle had lifted his burden forever. The Virgin's promise had been kept, not just a sign, but a bridge between worlds, a proof of love that transcended empires. Zumarraga rose, his eyes wet, his voice steady with newfound conviction. "This image is divine," he said, addressing the crowd, his words carrying the weight of a vow. "A temple will be built on Tepeyac Hill, as the Virgin has requested, where all, Spanish, Indian, rich, poor, may seek her love and protection. Juan Diego, you have been her messenger. Through you, heaven has spoken to us all." Juan Diego bowed, his heart full, the tilma now in the bishop's care, its coarse fibers transformed into a relic for the ages. As he left the palace, the sun blazed overhead, painting the city in gold that echoed the Virgin's light. By weekend, construction began on Tepeyac Hill, Spanish hammers striking alongside indigenous hands, their shared labor a silent prayer under her gaze. The temple rose swiftly, its walls embracing the hill's sacred earth, a sanctuary where pilgrims soon gathered, nobles in velvet, peasants in maguey, their prayers mingling in Spanish and Nahuatl before the tilma's radiant image. Juan Diego returned to Tolpatlac, finding his uncle Juan Bernardino outside their adobe hood, his face radiant with health, his eyes bright with wonder. "He came to me, nephew," he said, his voice strong, his hands grasping Juan Diego's. "The Virgin, radiant, healed me and spoke of your mission. She called herself Our Lady of Guadalupe, a name to unite us all." Juan Diego's tears fell, his heart overflowing. "She kept her promise, uncle," he said, his voice trembling. "The roses, the image, they changed everything. The bishop believes, and the temple rises." Juan Bernardino nodded, his eyes reflecting the sunset's rose and gold. "She chose you, Juan Diego, not the mighty, but the humble. Our people will see her face and know they are loved." In the years that followed, the tilma became Mexico's heart, its image drawing millions, conquerors and conquered, rich and poor, to kneel before a virgin who bore the features of the oppressed. By 1540, millions had converted, their faith rooted in her love, not Spanish swords. The image, hung in the new Basilica of Guadalupe, spoke in languages deeper than words, forging a nation from a conquered people. 5 centuries later, the Tilma endures, its cactus fibers defying time, its colors as vivid as the day they appeared. Modern eyes have probed its mysteries, finding no brushstrokes, no human technique, only a presence that resists explanation. Infrared studies reveal a starry mantle aligned with the 1531 winter sky, pigments unknown to 16th century artisans. Magnified, the Virgin's eyes appear to hold human figures, some say Juan Diego, Zumarga, and others present at the unveiling, though skeptics argue these are optical illusions, patterns seen in random shapes. Some devotional accounts suggest the cloth maintains the warmth of living flesh, but scientific consensus disputes this, citing inconsistent measurements. Textile experts marvel at its preservation, a material that should have crumbled centuries ago, exposed to smoke, humidity, and human touch, yet enduring in the basilica's embrace. Skeptics propose advanced indigenous artistry could explain the image's durability, but no theory fully accounts for its creation. Historical records, the Nican Mopopua, Spanish chronicles, indigenous codexes, tell of the apparitions, the roses, the image that sparked a spiritual awakening. Archaeological finds beneath the basilica confirmed Tepeyac pre-Hispanic sacredness, its stones once part of Tenancin's shrine. Digital enhancements uncovered details invisible to 16th century eyes, complexities that defy the era's artistry. Yet, mysteries persist. How the image formed, why it endures, what truths lie in the reflections of her gaze. The Tilma's legacy transcends miracles or mysteries. It is the story of heaven choosing the humble to confound the mighty, of a poor Indio whose faith bridged two worlds. The Virgin of Guadalupe became Mexico's heart, her image a symbol of identity, resilience, and hope. Pilgrims still come, millions each year, to kneel before the Tilma, seeking the comfort she promised. Spanish nobles and indigenous peasants, once divided, found unity in her presence, a social revolution not of swords, but of roses and faith. Juan Diego, the eagle that speaks, lived to see the temple built, to witness his people's faces light with proof that heaven saw their sorrow. He remained a simple man, his life a testament to the Virgin's choice of the last to be first. The Tilma, once his cloak against the cold, became a window to the divine. Its image, a universal message. Love knows no boundaries. Grace seeks the marginalized, and truth transcends both science and doctrine. As the sun sets over Tepeyac Hill today, its slopes crowned with the basilica's golden domes, the Tilma's light endures, a beacon for all who seek hope in a broken world. Juan Diego's steps, his bare feet on frost-covered earth, echo through time, a testament to a simple man who carried heaven's message. The Virgin of Guadalupe, her image born where roses bloomed against all odds, remains Mexico's heart, uniting the humble and the mighty in a promise that flourishes in the soil of faith.